Recording and I'll start the webinar. Give it just a few seconds once I click this, let people kind of filter in, and then should be good to go. Here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Swope Health Women's Histories Month virtual Lunch and Learn series. This is our opportunity to highlight women who are doing amazing things. And if you've been following us, you know that we've already spoken to Judge Lisa Harwick of the Missouri Court of Appeals and Congresswoman Robin Kelly of Illinois District 2. And so today I would like to introduce you to Dr. LaTonia Collins Smith. She is the 21st president of Harris-Stowe State University in St. Louis. She's the first woman to serve the university in this role. Dr. Collins Smith has more than 25 years of progressive leadership experience and an extensive administrative and program development background. She began her career in higher education at Harris-Stowe State University in 2010 and has served the university in several leadership roles. Dr. Collins Smith was the co-principal investigator of a $5 million National Science Foundation grant to substantially strengthen STEM in the state of Missouri, the largest grant in the history of Harris-Stowe. During her first year as president, HSSU made significant strides. Under her leadership, the university has raised more than $3.9 million in scholarships and donations, including those designated for endowments and grants, which is a 462% increase from the previous fiscal year. In addition, Harris-Stowe kicked off renovations for the former Vashon Community Center building, which will become home to the Don and Heidi Wolf Jazz Institute and National Black Radio Hall of Fame. Dr. Collins Smith earned an educational doctorate in her higher education leadership from Maryville University in St. Louis. She holds a Master of Social Work. I have a Master in Social Work too, Dr. Collins Smith, and a Master of Public Health degree from St. Louis University. Her mission is to inspire change in others through the power of education, scholarship, and service. Thank you for joining us today. I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry, I guess I need to come off mute. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here this afternoon with you all.
Thank you. Well, as always, let's just start by how you got here. How does one become the first woman president of the university?
Oh, wow. Lots of prayer. No,
Yeah.
That's part of it. But really, my background is in social work and public health. So I was a social work and public health practitioner here in the greater St. Louis area for about 21 years prior to coming to Harris-Stowe. And so in my other life, I've done just about everything I wanted to do in social work and public health, from foster care and adoptions, healthcare, indigent care, much like the work that you do at Swope Health. I also did legal, school social work, and for the last 7 years, I was an independent social work and public health practitioner as a contractor. And basically, I went around to different hospitals, group homes, you name it, to home health care, to kind of fill in gaps as an independent contractor. The way I tell my story is that I stumbled into higher ed. I had no desire to work in necessarily in higher education, and definitely no desire to be a college president. That was not on the radar at all. When I stumbled into higher ed, I came to Harris-Stowe on a grant initiative that was sponsored by SAMHSA. It was a federal grant that was funneled through the White House Initiative on HBCUs. And the grant was to educate minority students about the things that nobody wants to talk about, HIV and AIDS, substance abuse, and hepatitis. And so it was my role to come in and work with a group of young people that became peer health educators in order to educate the rest of the school population about these 3 topics, but to also make it fun and learning. I received a phone call from a friend. And so one of the things that I walk away with is sometimes your friends and individuals that you surround yourself with know you better than you know yourself, or they can see things that you can't necessarily see about yourself. And a friend called me on a Saturday morning and said, there's a job for you at Harris-Stowe. And I was like, no, it's not. And she's like, yes, it is. And we kind of went back and forth. And she said, they're looking for someone with a degree in social work or public health, and you have both. And it's just a grant. It's only 9 months. I was supposed to be here 9 months. It has been 13 years. So that's kind of how I got to Harris-Stowe. When I got to Harris-Stowe, I saw myself. And so I saw students who looked like me. I saw students who were from neighborhoods much like mine. I saw students who wanted to make a difference in their life. And I also saw an opportunity to be who I needed as I say first generation college student by default, because my mom was the first generation college student, but my mom passed away when I was 7. So here's my grandmother doing this again. And so I saw an opportunity to be who I needed as a first year student on the campus of somewhere that most of you are probably familiar with on that side of the state, the University of Central Missouri. And so I went to Central Missouri State University. And I saw an opportunity to be who I needed. And so that's how I got to Harris-Stowe. I was only supposed to be here 9 months, and our grant was renewed. My students were doing really well with educating the rest of their peers. And so I got bored. I started volunteering on the scholarship committee. I started volunteering student conduct. I started teaching first year students. And that's kind of what sparked my interest in working in higher education. But in higher ed, what I knew, I could be a good advocate. I had learned those skills as a social worker. I could be a darn good advocate for my students and what they needed. But unfortunately, in higher ed, there's this myth that in order to get to the table, you have to have this alphabet soup behind your name. And it was really my students who was the catalyst for me to go back to work on a terminal degree. And once I as I was finishing up the doctorate program, we had a change in leadership, and we got a new president who really took me under his wing and really fostered that idea of one day becoming a college president, not as soon as I did, but one day to rise to that occasion. And so here I am, the first African-American female college president here at Harris-Stowe.
Wonderful story. So talk to us then about, you said you never intended to be here, which a lot of us don't. Talk to us about passion and purpose. So I believe, and I think a lot of people believe, that when passion meets purpose, some magic can happen. So what's your passion? What's your purpose?
And so I say coming to Harris-Stowe really helped me to find my purpose and my passion. And one of the things for me personally, and everything that I do, it's very important for me to help others understand the power of education. And education changed my life. I grew up in the inner city here in St. Louis, in North St. Louis, Missouri. I am a proud product of St. Louis public schools. And going to college actually changed my life. When you look at the population in the neighborhood in which I grew up in, many students didn't go away to college. And so that was what really changed my life. And not only did it change my life, it changed the trajectory of my life. And also really, it has shifted the atmosphere in my immediate family to change generations to come. And so coming to Harris-Stowe, when I say I saw students much like myself, I saw an opportunity to be able to operate in my purpose and my passion to help other people to understand the power of education and how it can actually change the trajectory of just an individual, but not just the individual, family systems, but not just family systems, a whole community. And I have the opportunity, I am tremendously blessed to be in this space, to be able to operate in my purpose and my passion every day. I know what it feels like to work in a position in which you go home and you're like, am I really making a difference? And I know what it feels like to work on a job and you absolutely hate what it is that you're doing every day. But I knew when my husband said to me one day, I used to rush here when I worked. I was the part-time that was full-time at Harris-Stowe when I first started. And my husband worked evenings, and I kind of took advantage of that because that's really when I came here part-time and I'm doing my work. And sometimes I wouldn't get home until 11 o'clock at night. And it was my husband who actually said to me, "You must really like it at Harris-Stowe." And I said, why are you saying that? I thought he was kind of being funny and actually joking. And so he said, "No, I'm saying that because you've never once complained." And that was significant for me because when I thought about it, that's right. And so I have an opportunity to show up every day, my authentic self, and walk away knowing that I've helped someone that day. And so I know what it feels like not to go to work every day and not to enjoy what it is that you do. But I knew the two had aligned when I go home every day in anticipation for the next day, even if the day that I'm completing wasn't the best day, but I'm still in anticipation for the next day. That's how I knew that that purpose and my passion had aligned. And so I also knew that when I loved coming here and being with students so much, that it was something that I would do even if I received pay for it. And so when I talk about being the part-time that was full-time, I actually worked probably 40 to 50 hours a week, but I got paid for 20. And so that's how I knew when that purpose and that passion aligned.
Yeah, and that's a blessing. And I like to say, like here, even in my role, one of the things that I think about all the time is, wanting people to love working here. I want you to
Mhm.
love your job. I want you to enjoy coming here. And it feels like you're saying you found that. So that's amazing. Something else I think about when I consider purpose and passion and that creating something beautiful, you mentioned it, mentorship or somebody that you engaged with in your doctoral program that really took you by the hand and led you along the way. Are there other mentors that you'd like to share about or pay homage to in this?
Yeah, when I think about mentors, I mentioned earlier my mom passed away when I was 7. But I also encountered a teacher in my high school. I never had her for a class. We met in a hallway. Um, she was leaving the teacher's lounge and I was going to the restroom. And that was our encounter. But that happenstance encounter in a hallway led to over 30 plus years of a loving, mentoring, motherly relationship. She was one that actually poured into me and really made sure that I had those unanswered questions answered when it related to going to college, when it related to matriculating and developing into a professional woman and becoming a professional all around, so how that person was with me for over 30 plus years of my life and shared many of my significant life moments, from my wedding to graduations to even ascending to this role as president. Unfortunately, she unexpectedly passed away last August, but having her in my life to help me to navigate those moments and the happy moments and even those challenging moments. That was my processor. That was my strategic partner, where we can kind of strategize and map things out. And so I use that as an opportunity to share with others. You never know what impact you can actually have on an individual, regardless to where you are, what that happenstance encounter may be. And so she was definitely a mentor to me, and she really became a significant part of what I have is a personal board of directors. She was probably the chief executive officer of that board. But also, like I said, my former president, who we're still in very close contact to this day. And I often share with individuals that if my mother would have had a son, it probably would have been him. Because it's different when you have just a mentor, but it's one thing to have a mentor, but it's also another thing to have a mentor and a friend and an advocate all in one.
Absolutely. And so because of your experience, I would imagine then now you make space for mentorship in your life, that you serve as other people's mentors, that you want to be for somebody what others have been for you.
Absolutely. I believe that is extremely important. And I have always been a mentor throughout my life, even when I think back to as a kid. I can remember I was going to be a teacher, and I can remember transforming my playroom into a classroom and bringing in young people that lived in my neighborhood to teach them in my classroom the things that I had already learned at school. And so I can think about mentoring as early as, second, third grade. But even in this space, it's very important for me. Most times people ask, well, how does it feel to be the first? Um, I share that with responsibility comes accountability. And so I feel as though, and with accountability comes responsibility, is I am responsible for creating that pathway for other individuals. So they too can shatter glass ceilings. And so it is definitely a part of my DNA and who I am and my calling to make sure that I share life lessons and mentor other individuals along their path and journey as well.
All right. Okay, so we're going to switch focus a little bit
Okay.
from you to HBCUs,
Mhm.
historically Black colleges and universities. Talk to us about any challenges that your university may be facing, or just in general, the challenges faced by HBCUs today, and what we can do to be more supportive.
Mhm. I would say some of the challenges would be, of course, we are a state funded school. So sometimes just about funding and equity, access and equity, and just making sure that individuals understand the nature of our work. One of the things HBCUs are not are significantly different from predominantly white institutions. I attended all predominantly white institutions, but when I came to Harris-Stowe, the difference was one of the things I mentioned earlier, that you get to show up every day your authentic self. And it also offers an opportunity for students to see who they can be. The other thing is there's a community-like feel. Here on our campus, students are not just a number, they actually have a name, where we pride ourselves on getting to know our students, getting to know what they value and what's important to them, and really becoming involved to help them cross the finish line. HBCUs have a holistic approach of how we help our students by making sure students are exposed to things that they may not have ordinarily been exposed to, and really being advocates for change. So I think for us, some of the challenges are the lack of understanding and the lack of individuals understanding what's different about an HBCU. And oftentimes I get questioned, why an HBCU? The culture is different. There is a lot of self-pride that is enforced here at an HBCU. And you get to learn from those individuals who look like you. So that's what I would say would be some of the challenges for us.
Thank you.
And then you also asked, how can you help? I would say,
Yeah.
definitely encouraging young people to explore HBCUs. Of course, HBCUs aren't for everyone. That's much like with everything, but encourage young people to take a look at HBCUs as they are seeking their college decision and where they would like to go. For me, as an individual, it's very important, even in this space, in this role as a university president. I tell people all the time, I am still a social worker. I'm a social worker at heart. That's who I am. That's a part of my DNA. And so being able to connect with people is what's really most important. And being able to connect with my students is what drives me, is the catalyst for me to be able to do this work. So I actually go out and I do what I call a Presidential Dollar for Scholars tour. I was just in Kansas City, probably about a month or so ago now, and visited over 12 schools to recruit young people to come to Harris-Stowe. But it wasn't just enough for me to recruit young people to come to Harris-Stowe. It's important for me to also provide scholarship opportunities for students to do that. And so we have several scholars who are in Kansas City right now that have been awarded presidential scholarships, full ride scholarships, tuition only scholarships, and other supplemental scholarships to be able to help them afford a college education. And oftentimes some of the things that I have realized, even in this day and time, there are still young people who don't understand or don't even realize that they too can afford college and being able to go to college. And there's still young people who can't even see themselves in that space. So it's very important for me to be a part of that and to be very as a leader, to be transparent and also accessible so that young people can understand that college is definitely possible.
Very cool. So I'm thinking about some challenges that we've experienced, especially since COVID, and not unique to us by any means, around the healthcare workforce.
Yep.
And so, are there any specific things that Harris-Stowe is doing to connect young people to employers, or are there things that us as employers can do to better connect with graduating college students, because we want them to come work for us?
Yeah. So one of the things that I share with employers, is interesting that you asked that, because my first full-time role here at the university was the executive director of the Center for Career Engagement. So one of the things that I implemented immediately was a mandatory internship opportunity for all students. So at Harris-Stowe, students have to complete an internship and or a research opportunity. And the reason for that is because at Harris-Stowe, we're unapologetic about the population of students that we serve. Our students many of them are first generation. A lot of them are under-resourced, and sometimes they're often underprepared. And we want to make sure that we expose students to things that they wouldn't ordinarily see. And one of the things I lead as an individual from experience. So one of the things that I know as a social work major on the campus of CMSU, my internship actually exposed me to so many things that I didn't even realize was a part of social work. And it also prepared me for a pretty lucrative career in the field. And so we want to make sure that our students are exposed to that. So I would say definitely industry offering internship opportunities. We also offer paid internships for our students. So if the employer doesn't offer paid internships, what we do is actually we have a funder that has actually agreed to fund students to be able to do their internship up to 280 hours, and they were paid $15
Well,
an
that's great.
hour in order to do an internship. The other thing I encourage employers to do is develop a relationship with universities. Relationship development goes a very long way. And what I have found here at our university, those companies that come in from the very beginning and they develop those relationships, such as resume review or mock interviewing or classroom presentations, those type of things. Those are the companies and organizations that are a lot more successful, because by the time it's time to select a place in order to do your internship, you already have developed relationships, and you know of an organization, and you have an understanding of that organization. But not only that, it allows organizations access to come in and begin to pretty much grow your own employee, because you can kind of start having those conversations and mentoring individuals, and they will be more than likely to choose your organization to go to become an employee of your organization. And so at Harris-Stowe, even though we're rooted and grounded in education, that is our founding degree program, actually our largest degree producing program right now is biology. We have nearly 500 biology majors. This spring, we'll have 75 biology majors graduating from the university. That is our largest degree producing program. We actually have a robust agenda in STEM right now. We recently created a STEM college, a new college of STEM. So we went from 3 academic colleges to 4. And in that STEM program, we have individuals who desire to go into healthcare. So we've created pipeline programs for individuals to go into med school, occupational therapy, nursing is one, Goldfarb School of Nursing, pharmacy. So all of those different career pathways that could be beneficial to Swope Health. But not only that, on the other side, we we're program reviewing right now the curriculum of our healthcare management program. But then we also have students in business, marketing, communication, and other areas that could be beneficial. We're creating, we also have sociology, psychology, and those students are pipelining into Masters of Counseling programs here at other universities. So those are some of the different degree programs that I think would be beneficial for an organization such as Swope Health.
I'm taking notes. I heard you say this is the beginning of a new relationship and that we're going to visit.
Yes, we can
And
do
start
that. You know,
mentoring.
I am very intentional about recruiting scholars from Kansas City. Last year, I personally recruited 12 from the Kansas City area. And it is my responsibility, if I can't keep them here in St. Louis, to definitely connect them back in the communities in which I've recruited them from.
Listen, I have one for you. She shares my last name, and so I've
Okay,
got an up-and-coming teenager.
send her my way.
Right.
Send her my way.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, so we talked about some challenges. Talk to us about like some exciting new initiatives that are going on that you guys are doing over at Harris-Stowe.
Okay, so I talked a little bit about our College of STEM. We also have a new entrepreneurship certificate program. It is actually a 5-week program where we are working with entrepreneurs, particularly minority entrepreneurs, to help them to develop their business plan, marketing strategy. They're able to pitch their business to over 16 different banks in order to perhaps receive grant funding or startup funds for their business. That is one of our new initiatives. We started it last spring. We are on cohort 5, and we have over 100 people waiting list right now for individuals to actually come into that program. We're also grounded and rooted in geospatial technology. So we are right now training scholars for careers with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. So anything with data analytics, also geospatial intelligence in the intelligence community. And really the best way I describe that is all of our cell phone users. If anybody has talked to MapQuest or used MapQuest, talked to Siri, there is actually a whole workforce that is designed for that with the federal government. So being able to help students move into federal jobs and careers with the federal agencies. The other thing is we are totally rebranding and revamping our College of Education. We're doing some work with training educators in STEM. But not only that, really helping to address the urban ed crisis that is actually happening right now, to help educators to really secure their certification so that our students in urban settings will be taught by certified educators. Those are a couple of things that we have going on right now that's kind of at the top of the list. So you'll see more things happening for us in the STEM area.
Wow, absolutely. That's amazing. That entrepreneurship certificate, is that an in-person or is that virtual?
It is in person.
Okay.
However, we will, the goal is to eventually introduce an online component, particularly for those individuals who are not here in this area, those who live in rural Missouri or rural Illinois, so that they will be able to pipeline in as well.
Okay, very cool and much needed. All right, so leadership. I had an old boss who used to ask this question, and it was probably annoying then, but now it's more meaningful. So what keeps you up at night?
I get that question all the time. And honestly, nothing.
Ah, I love that answer. I was hoping that was your answer.
I actually sleep very well at night. If you ask my husband, he would probably say too well at night. And part of that is because what I know as a leader is that problems wasn't created overnight, and they won't be solved overnight either. It is something that you have to really continuously work at. You can't fix everything at one time. And so you really have to prioritize the work and what you're doing, and then work to accomplish those goals. And so that's the beauty of when you're working and that's another way how you know that what you're doing, you're operating in your purpose and your passion. I'm a type of person, I don't worry about yesterday because it's really nothing that I can do about yesterday. I have to think about what's happening right now in the moment, and forecasting and projecting towards the future. And so I get that question all the time. And the reality of it is nothing.
Such a blessing. Nothing.
Yep, nothing.
So in honor of Women's History Month, we have to talk about women and leadership.
Mhm.
What advice would you give young women coming up, trying to figure out, their next and best move?
I would say what I share with my students all the time is this. some of the best opportunities that you will ever receive. And some of the best experiences are those that you will never receive compensation for. One of the things that you heard me say earlier, I started volunteering. I started volunteering on this campus in other capacities because that was knowledge that I wanted to gain, which has really paid off for me even in this space. I have probably been in just about every space on this campus. And so in this role, it made transitioning to this role a lot easier because I had already developed relationships in other capacities. But if there's something, a policy or procedure or a process that's actually happening, 9 times out of 10, my fingerprint is probably on it because I served on a team or I volunteered on a committee to be a part of that. So that helped to develop historical context. The other thing that I would say is always remember, for every no, there's a yes. When you look at my trajectory moving into this leadership role, I was a part-time that was full-time. I took a closet and made it an office so that I can have a quiet space to be able to talk with my students. I worked out of my car for a year because when I transitioned to the academic side of the house, there wasn't an office space for me over here. So I had my little crate in the back of my car. But what did not change was my commitment to my students. My students is the catalyst for everything that I do. And then I did not shy away from offering my opinion. So I would share with women, lean into the table. Don't sit on a parameter. Don't sit, in those seats that they put and they line up by the wall.
Yeah.
No. Go to the table. I knew that I was going back to work on a terminal degree because I wanted a seat at the table. So it did me no good to sit in the seats around the wall because my goal, my objective was to get to the table. So every opportunity that I got, I sat at the table. And I also made my voice heard because I felt that what I had to say was significant because I was the person, the part-time person that was here at 5 o'clock when everybody else went home. I was that person who connected with students in a space, in a place that many people didn't, because I was here when, as the kids would say, when it was popping. After hours, that's when it's popping. And so I had something to contribute. So don't be afraid of what you have to contribute. The other thing is I pray about all things. And even when individuals that I highly respected came to me and said, hey, I think you should go to this leadership program and I can see you in this space. But you got to be able to see yourself in that space. The other thing too is value and really evaluate those things that people are sowing into you. And also, I would highly encourage, as a woman, know your worth. There's been times in this space and on this journey where individuals, I've actually said like, oh no, you're not gonna hire a associate because I'm gonna become the associate. You're gonna hire an assistant because I've been here. I'm doing the work. So know your worth and don't be afraid to speak up. Use your voice. You're your best advocate. And never let people, don't get caught up in the noise. You have to block out noise. So that's why I say, when you ask what keeps me up at night, nothing. Because I block out noise. I don't have time to listen to noise. When you truly are linked in with your purpose and your passion, and you know what your calling is, you don't have time for noise. And you don't have time for naysayers. So that's why I say lean in. Don't sit behind those on the wall. Don't sit on the wall. Come to the table because you have to demand and command the respect so that individuals will understand what it is that you're trying to communicate. And they will value what you have to say as well.
I love
And to
that so
teach
much.
people how to treat you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one more question for you,
Sure.
but before that, is there anything else you would like to share with us? Anything that would be important to know about you, Harris-Stowe, HBCUs, being a woman in leadership?
I would just like to say that Harris-Stowe is the only HBCU in the city of St. Louis and one of two in the state of Missouri, but I don't talk about that other one, even though my parents graduated from there. And I say that it is the most affordable public institution in the state of Missouri and the fourth affordable HBCU in the nation. And I would encourage everyone to take a look at Harris-Stowe and also follow us on all of our social media outlets. You'll be surprised at some of the dynamic things that are actually happening in this space.
Yeah, I was checking out your Facebook page last night. Some really cool things happening for Women's History Month. Maybe you want to hop in the car and go.
Come on, come
I
on.
know. All right. So lastly, I was a huge Oprah fan. And so one of the questions that she used to ask that I love so much, at this point in your life and career, what do you know for sure?
What I know for sure is that I go to bed every night and I know that I've made a difference. And what I also know for sure is that I am going to leave Harris-Stowe better than I found it. And the other thing is this, that I will leave a legacy of service and scholarship. That's what I know for sure.
Well, I thank you, and it has been an absolute pleasure. I thank you for
Absolutely.
joining us, Ms. Dr. LaTonia Collins Smith. And I want to thank everybody else who joined today and remind you that we're going to be here next week doing it again. And
Yeah.
so join us on March 29th when we talk to Nikki Lee Donawa, who is the Chief Community Relations Officer at University Health.
Yay. All righty.
All right. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you. Have a
It's
good
pleasure.
afternoon.
You too.
Bye-bye.